Hey everyone, it's me, our Shanghai. I kind of have to bowl through this because it's very late and it's actually almost the end of my shift already, and so I'm not actually going to have time to do a full video like I had planned to do tonight, or indeed last night. For those of you who are wondering, no, I have not been playing Diablo 3 for the past 2 weeks or however long it's been. Uh, I mean, I have played Diablo 3, don't get me wrong, but I'm still in nightmare difficulty, if that gives you an idea. No, I have been having issues with my throat. Not that I want to bore you with the entire sordid tale, but I had an ulcer about this big on the back of my throat, which made it very difficult to, well, to do anything, to be completely honest with you, and let alone talk for hours at a time. And it was at the point where I could only talk for a couple minutes or a minute before I had to stop and put some benzocaine on it. And so I had to get that healed and taken care of. And when it finally got to the point where I could talk again, the very first priority I had was getting to work on the project I'd been working on, as I've mentioned before, which required using my voice, of course. And so last night I was going to do a video, and then I was busy at work. And so finally, tonight I was going, okay, I'm definitely doing my next video tonight, and it's 40 minutes to the end of my shift right now. And the guy who relieves me tends to show up early, so I'm going to kind of barrel through this. I wanted to say one other thing, though, really quick. For the moment, for reasons that would take too long to explain in detail here, I'm kind of shelving the podcast idea. However, if any of you know of a podcast hosting service that is free and that is not completely terrible, feel free to mention it to me or give me a name of it or something like that. You know, you don't have to give me a direct URL link, just, give me the name or something along those lines, and I'll go ahead and look into it. So that idea is shelved for now unless someone else adds something, which they may. That'd be nice, but for the moment I kind of have to leave that be. For what amounts to money reasons, let's just leave it at that. The job is... I don't want to go into it. Let's talk about gaming. Let's talk about something that's not depressing and horrible and awful. Now, ironically, the very first question was about my throat, and why my throat is bad so often. And I do actually want to answer this really quickly. I don't know what the source cause is. It's probably a vitamin B12 deficiency. I do have some anemic problems with my blood that runs in my family. However, I can tell you what the catalyst is, and I'm telling you this, I'm answering this specifically, not just because I was asked, but just in case you or anybody you know has the same problem. Chocolate. This isn't chocolate, this is a flash drive. But chocolate is the item. Chocolate is what was causing the catalyst. I could be fine. I'd get really tiny ulcers, like that big, and they'd go away within a day, no problem. And so we were going through the allergenic tests and trying different things, and finally my nurse was like, okay, we've tried everything. Let's try a little piece of chocolate. And it was just a little piece of Hershey's, and again... So... just as a thought and just as an informative, but that would be the thing. And I like chocolate, which kind of sucks because now I have to avoid it for the rest of my life, basically. Anyways, so let's go ahead and go to the next question. Can you put timestamps on your videos? I'm actually not sure I understand this question. I don't know exactly what he's referring to. I'm not very YouTube savvy. I don't browse YouTube. I don't just kind of randomly go through the videos on here. So... if anybody knows what he's talking about, feel free to let me know, and I will figure out what this timestamp thing has to do with. Next question. If you had the power to make a sequel to any game, remove the terrible sequel from any game, or create a complete reboot of any game, what would those be? That's actually a very tough one, and I did think about this quite a lot, but I would go ahead and say if I was to make a really good modern sequel to a game, I would probably pick TIE Fighter. For those of you who even remember that. You may also remember it as X-Wing, or X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, or X-Wing Alliance. They're all basically the same concept, but TIE Fighter was definitely my favorite of the bunch, and I would really enjoy a proper sequel to that. If I was to remove a sequel from history, Devil May Cry 2, by far. I'm actually a fan of the Devil May Cry series. Devil May Cry 3 is my personal favorite of the, what's that called? Spectacle fighter genre. But Devil May Cry 2 was... bad. Let's just summarize. It was bad, and let's just move on. And if I could make a proper reboot of any, of any game series, what I would do, the Secret of Mana game or series. Definitely, arguably one of my favorite series of all time, and one of those ones that just does not get the attention I feel it deserves. So, next question. What is your favorite era of the Star Wars? Now that is actually a tough one. I had to think about this for a while, but I'd probably go ahead and pick the New Republic Winds of Change era. That would be basically from the Thrawn trilogy, when the New Republic has actually been founded very recently, all the way up to the Hand of Thrawn duology. And that, I think, contains the most interesting character development, the best books, and most of the interesting plot lines and arcs throughout the series, in my opinion. Although there are several that are close, such as the Old Republic era and the KOTOR era. But anyways, next question. Have I ever played Grim Fandango, and what did I think of it? Yes, I have. It was a very fun, it was a very imaginative game. It was arguably one of the last true adventure games, from that era of adventure gaming, from LucasArts, for that matter. And it was really fun. It was an interesting concept, because they take something, the Days of the Dead, and actually turned it into almost a non sequitur form of humor. It was very interesting, and I did enjoy it quite a bit. I was wondering if you had ever played Suikoden's Stablemate, Vandal Hearts, and what your thoughts were. Actually, I never did get to pick up Vandal Hearts. It was on the PS1, and to my great dismay, I didn't actually pick up a PS1 until very late in its development cycle, and so I missed out on a fairly large number of games. However, if it came out on the PSP or something similar, in a handheld format, I probably would actually go ahead and pick it up. Have I played Lord of the Rings War in the North? Yes, I have. I don't actually have much to say about it, unfortunately. It was a very enjoyable popcorn game, not the kind of thing I'd play twice, but it was fun, and, definitely a game to buy on the Steam sale or whatnot. And, let's see. Sorry about that. Had to respond to some customer there. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a continued question. God, I haven't done this for a bit. If I have played Lord of the Rings War of the North, what are my thoughts about it? Did it maintain enough integrity in the story to present something unique and it not stepping on the carefully plotted history laid out in the books? Yes, I do think it added to the overall setting, not in a particularly deep and intricate way, but it nonetheless did flesh out the background, the complexity. Now, in my opinion, Lord of the Rings Online did the same exact thing in a better way, but they were both reaching for the same style, the same general concept of, taking the established canon and not changing it, but just adding in, filling in the holes, because there are all sorts of holes in the background, and on purpose. You don't want to flesh out the whole world when you're doing a story like that. And so there's plenty of room for that kind of expansion, and I really enjoy it when people do that right. What are your opinions on Neverwinter Nights, Neverwinter Nights 2, and the expansions to Neverwinter Nights? I loved Neverwinter Nights. I played it a lot. I played it a lot multiplayer. I loved Neverwinter Nights 2. I played it several times, only 2 times actually, I believe, all the way through, and I played it multiplayer on my second time through. The expansions to Neverwinter Nights were fantastic, and an excellent example of something I'll be talking about later when I get to my Baldur's Gate review. But they clearly had learned their lessons in Neverwinter Nights and took what they had learned and what they had grown with and expanded upon it. Actually made it much more interesting, much more well-developed, much more character, better music, better setting, better everything. The whole thing was better. And so I loved them. And I gotta say, with the possible exception of Baldur's Gate 2, the Neverwinter Nights are the best D&D games I've ever played. Have I ever played Jax and Dexter? I have not. Jax and Dexter only hit my radar sometime recently, and unfortunately, in the more modern era of my personal type, gaming career, whatever you want to call it, money and time are both concerns, and so every game must now justify itself. And so while that game is there, it's not exactly one that's on my list, if you know what I mean. So I don't have much to say about that, unfortunately. Have you ever played Hegemonia, Legions of Iron? Yes, I have. I liked it a great deal. It never really caught me in the way that, say, Masters of Orion 2 or Civilization 2 or Homeworld did, but it was a great game, a great concept, and I do recommend anyone who could find a copy of it to pick it up, who's into strategy games and war games, and to give it a try. More games like that need to exist, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on reality television? Could you ever see these types of shows dying out? I admit I never liked reality TV. The very first Survivor, way back, was at least an interesting concept and trying for something new, but I didn't get into it. And it degenerated so fast and so hard from there until you get to this drama as entertainment thing, which I don't understand. And it's just disinteresting. I see that and I actively dislike it. It's not as opposed to, well, I don't like this, there's nothing positive. No, it's actually negative. It's actually disaffecting me to the point where I'm like, ah, get it off my screen, So, cannot stand reality TV, and I just don't get the allure at all. That's just my opinion. But, If you had a chance to develop or produce your own television show, what would it be? This is actually funny because I do have a television show concept in mind that I will never get to use ever. Even if I won the lottery, I wouldn't be able to do this. It's actually essentially a sequel to Star Trek. And when I say sequel, I mean the continuation of the story. Star Trek overall basically stopped with Deep Space Nine as far as the canon of the Alpha and the Beta quadrants, and I wanted to expand on that. I wanted to keep going with it. And I had a whole plot arc of, I think it was 6 seasons planned out, and several characters were already set, and their characterization, their plot arcs, and how exactly it would explore the galaxy, and how exactly the themes would go forward, and what exactly the twists it would be, because there would be a couple of twists, only a few, blah 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 blah. And I really wish I could do that someday, but unfortunately, that's just never going to happen. So that would be the TV show I'd do, though. Definitely, I'd love to actually be able to do that. Have I considered making a video series about how to make a game? I have not, and while I know a great deal about code and code charting and logic, I am simply too far out of date to give the kind of in-depth analysis that thing really deserves, that kind of video really deserves. So I am not the expert that would be the one who should be talking about that, and I'm not going to pretend to be. It's an interesting concept, though. Now I'm going to pause for just a moment here. Sorry about that. Next question. Do you think Blizzard will ever make a World of Warcraft 2? No, I do not. I don't think there's any purpose in that. I don't think there's any money in that. Titan, we'll see what happens there, since we know nothing about Titan. We can conjecture a great deal about Titan. Warcraft 4, on the other hand. Here's hoping. Simply put, what are your favorite battles from history and why? This is actually a lengthy question, and unfortunately my battles are probably going to be much more boring than the ones you mentioned, because I just have different tastes, I guess. But one of the battles I actually really enjoyed, I shouldn't even say enjoy because it was a terrible, horrible battle. What's a good word? Fascinating? One of the battles I found fascinating, one of the battles I found to be an interesting curiosity was the Battle for Gettysburg in the Civil War of the United States. The reason why is older battles in general just interest me because the tactics and the strategies involved are so different. When you have to take into account how hard or soft the terrain is, and how a few feet of elevation makes all the difference, I mean, I've actually been to Gettysburg, and I actually saw where a lot of the battles occurred, physically, myself, personally, and it's just amazing to look up and see, like, a 10-foot-tall rock outcropping, and to think that one of the most critical points of the third wave of that battle occurred on that rock outcropping, because that's where they had the artillery set up, was 10 feet up on this tiny little thing, and people were trying to literally climb this rock to get up there in order to stop the artillery barrage, and and never mind the fact that the infamous charge. I've been on that hill, and when I say hill, I mean very gradual slope, but it was still something you had to take into account. There was no technology or assistance or any modern convenience to help you out. It was you and your feet and your gun, and that was it. And so there's just a level of tactics, a level of strategy there that I find absolutely fascinating. Another good battle would be the Battle of Moscow and the Soviet front in general in World War II. I'm not going to go into detail about that. I could talk about the Eastern Front for forever. But there are so many details, so many tiny little things that all combine together to actually make the Eastern Front and the Battle for Moscow specific, and make it turn into the tidal wave that was the Eastern Front in both directions. And it's just fascinating to me, but let's move on. I was wondering if you are of Romanian descent, and would you mind telling me where exactly in Romania you come from, or if you have ever been there or lived there, etc., etc. Now, I am actually Romanian on my mother's father's side, and she came from God, I'm just losing my words tonight. Constanta. To my great regret, I have never actually had a chance to visit Romania. Time and money both being the usual hurdles. Why do I keep saying that? I'm sorry. I'm probably saying that horribly wrong because it's such a habit, because that's how I heard it. Romania. I'm not even actually sure that's correct, to be completely honest with you. That's just the way I was raised. But, anyways, I would love to visit, but time and money are the usual hurdles. I really would enjoy visiting there. I would absolutely love to get there, and go back to Russia as well. Going back to my roots, since I am primarily Russian and Romanian, and just a tiny bit of German. But anyways, moving on. Next question. This is kind of a long one. Do you think that with the success of the Avengers, they should continue to expand the cinematic universe? Question one. That Marvel should work to acquire the rights to other heroes such as Spider-Man and Wolverine and the X-Men, Venom, etc., etc. Second question. And then by the time the Avengers trilogy is done, they can then make a film saga with a film crossing story arc involving the Civil War storyline. Third question. First of all, yes, I do think they should reacquire the rights to their films, most definitely. I think the X-Men series has been a travesty in the movies. The first movie was alright, the second movie was great, in my opinion. The third movie was one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and it just kind of floundered from there on. I did actually like First Class, but not as an X-Men movie. I liked it as a superhero movie, if you follow me. But given the way that Marvel has been doing lately, and with the backing from Disney, I think they could do some good work, as indeed they have been lately, and so I do hope they actually reacquire those franchises. Let's see, the second question is... I guess actually, I'm sorry, that was actually the second question. The first question is, do they continue to expand the cinematic universe? Yes, I think that's a great idea. The idea of having a solid canon and continuity in movies is something that is rarely done. For obvious reasons, it's a difficult and costly and risky thing to do, but I think it's been working out really well for them, and so here's hoping that they continue doing that. And of course, the final reason is about the Civil War arc, and I've been thinking about this one a lot, because for those of you who don't know, the Civil War arc was complicated and polarizing, and simultaneously excellent and terrible, depending on the writer. And so, I personally don't think they should, just because pulling that off would require some real... It would require everything to actually come together perfectly here. It would require the right acting, the right directing, the right music, the right talent, the right graphics design. Every single step of the way would have to be done really well, and I think that's a risky venture that probably they should just avoid. Now, if they did manage it, that'd be awesome, but I don't think that's one they're going to go for, personally. Have I ever played any of the Painkiller games? Yes, I have. The first one was amazing. Oh my goodness, definitely one of those hidden gem games I like to refer, you know, the Diamond and the Rough. But the sequels took a bit of a nosedive, and which is a shame, because the potential was so great to have a resurgence of what we used to really enjoy about the old FPSs, you know, the first, second generation, and so it really is a shame. But if any of you happen to like first-person shooters at all, I do recommend you pick up the first Painkiller. It's one word, and give it a look, because it's an excellent game. Now, I had to summarize this question because it was rather lengthy, but basically, can you still enjoy games which force a sadistic choice of two evils upon you? Can I enjoy such a game? Not really. Can I still appreciate such a game for being well designed or well presented or both? Yes, definitely. I'm simply too, me, I guess. I don't know what else to call this. I hate to say this, but I just prefer, for better or worse, to have the option to be good, to do well, to be the Mario. And maybe it's because I like having the option, maybe it's because it's less realistic, maybe it's because that's what I would do in real life if I could. You know, I don't know. I just prefer that type of thing and having the option to do so. If you're going to give I do still think the option should exist to be the evil, you know, screwhead, because there are people that enjoy that, and I agree with options in general in video gaming. You know, not everyone should be forced into any path on any level of the spectrum, including mine. However, I do want the option as well to be the Mario, to be the good guy, so that's just my thing. This is a two-part question, which was phrased slightly differently. What is your opinion on the trend towards DRM in games? Do you have sympathy with the industry? Are they going about it the right way? Was that someone coming in the door? No, it wasn't. And if are they going about it the right way, and if not, is there a good way to do DRM? The second question was phrased, what is your opinion on the current efforts within the gaming industry to impose DRM? Is there a better way to do it, fine as it is, or do you think there should be none at all? I'm going to answer these as one. I just wanted to make sure both questions were getting their time there. I've actually talked on this rather sensitive topic before, and I'm not above saying that I don't have a good solution. You know, I don't have something that helps everyone, or even most everyone involved. I do think DRM to some extent is a good thing, in moderation. So I have a degree of sympathy with the industry to an extent, in moderation. And by the same token, you know, I do think that DRM can go too far, and I do have a great deal of sympathy for people who are just tired of the DRM situation. The only form of DRM I've ever seen that does it well enough, and even this is still not good. I just want to stress this because there are problems here. But the only one I've seen that has done it as best as I've ever seen, I guess, the highest up on the meter would be Steam, with basically the always or mostly online policies. And it's a complicated issue, and I wish I did have a solution. I wish I had some way to be like, here, why don't we do this? Even if I couldn't implement it, it would be nice to have the thought there that said, this is how this could be. But I don't, because it's a very difficult and unpleasant situation, and to be honest, there probably is no good solution, so let's move on here. Have you played the Age of Empires series and Rise of Nations? What do you think of them? Yes, and yes. Let's talk about Rise of Nations first. It never really caught me, which isn't a statement against the game, per se. It more came out in a period when I was playing other games that dragged me in much more so, and I really enjoyed the take on what I call the Total War format, where it is strategic and it's tactical combat in the same game. I really think more games should do that, and I really do enjoy that type of combat. Now, the Age of Empires series, as I'll talk about more later to a related question, I played the unholy hell out of that game, or those games, I should say. Age of Empires 1 and 2 specifically, but most especially 2. I played 2 a lot. I can't even explain how I enjoyed it. It was very, there was nothing groundbreaking about it, or about any of them, really. They added a few additional resources. They added a couple new facets of functioning of base building, and they made it so that the units were a little more rock, paper, scissors than they had been in previous games. But something about the combination was really well done, and I really did find myself getting into the game and enjoying it, especially 2. And I don't even know how to explain it properly. But just to give you an example, and this is going to sound weird, but the Egypt campaign in Age of Empires 1, I used to replay that often just because I enjoyed it. It was easy, which was unfortunate. I shouldn't even say that. It was very easy, but it was enjoyable. I really enjoyed going through and following the rise of Egypt, very roughly, of course. So, shrug. Now, I'm going to go ahead and pause here. This isn't as long as I'd like, but at this point, I'm literally watching the cameras for whenever my replacement shows up, and I still need to have time to upload this. So, I will try and continue these tomorrow at this point, and hopefully, I'm back, so to speak. So, I'll talk to you guys later.